Guys and girls, Poketin King here, back with another Flesh and Blood video. It has been a few days now since we've had the last one. We've had, obviously a lot has happened. We've had Tampa, the world premiere for Rosetta. We've had some absolutely crazy cards like the Rosetta Fawn, which is ridiculous, like all these Marvels, like the Legendaries, and the Fable as well, which looks pretty good, but I want to see it in person. But we've had a lot happened, and obviously we've seen like the anime hero, the alt arts. We've seen adult Ira is here, and there's an alternative art as well, which is like an anime version, which is, you know, fantastic what Flesh and Blood are doing. They are appealing to a wider audience now, and I think this is going to bring a lot of people into the game. We're going to see an influx of collectors and players, I think, coming into the game, some returning as well. I've already spoken to a lot of people that have started coming back to the game, which is fantastic to hear. You've always got a change. You've always got like kind of a, almost the kind of open market sort of thing with TCGs, where people come in as they sort of want to, like a revolving door, because, you know, things get expensive. There's so many other card games to play and collect. Like, the choice is really endless. So I think a lot of people kind of put Flesh and Blood on the back burner for a little bit and kind of see what happens. But I think Rosetta is definitely a set that people will want to be coming back to. So today's topic of the video is, what is Flesh and Blood doing well? And I can't talk about like why Flesh and Blood is doing so well and kind of like what makes the game special. So this could be a long video, you know, so sit back, grab a drink, grab a snack, and listen to me absolute waffle for the next 20 minutes on Flesh and Blood. So the reason why I got into Flesh and Blood simply was the art. The art was the main thing that got me into it. And you look at the progression of the art from the first few sets, you know, they've got that whack era into, you know, Monarch, Tales of Aria, Everfest, through like Uprising, Outsiders, Dynasty, Dusk Till Dawn. And you look at like Fab 3.0 now with like Misfail, you got Heavy Hitters, Misfail, and Rosetta now. The game has changed dramatically, and I'm not going to talk about like the, you know, the playability of the game right this second, but I want to talk about in terms of the pure artwork of this. These cards are absolutely stunning. I'm going to put up here a couple of my favorite cards throughout the video that I think the art is just absolutely amazing for. Some sets that have come out, and then, you know, some cards might be from Rosetta as well. But when I talk about the absolute peak of art, when I think of this Rosetta Fawn, like Marvel card, because it is just absolutely amazing. I've not seen the Dust Blade. Apparently there is one, but I haven't seen it. But, you know, the gold sort of like greeny border, like the theme of it is just, oh, it is chef's kiss, honestly. It is absolutely amazing. I have not seen a better card ever in any other card game. Like, I know it's going to be stupid rare, but I want one, and I'm going to try and get one. Just have in the collection as a collector, like, I think is a must-have. There's a lot of cards in this set that I really want. You know, the Briar looks amazing. The Florian, like, all of the Marvels look stunning. And I absolutely want those in my collection. I recently picked up a couple of the Marvels from Misfail, which I have up here. I bought a collection. But when you look at some of these cards, you know, like Drop in the Ocean, you've got the Grain That Tips the Scale. Like, the artwork obviously is like, you know, very in line with like Japanese. And then you've even, you know, when you look at these extended art cards like the Manifestation of Mirage and Levels of Enlightenment, just the art compared to like the first few sets, when I think, you know, there was nothing wrong with the art the first few sets. It was what got all of us into it. The art was absolutely stunning from the get-go, but the level that we've got to now with Flesh and Blood, with these Marvels, you know, with these extended arts, like, it's just absolutely amazing. And I don't see another TCG on that level. Like, I love the art of Sorcery, but a lot of it is, you know, it's art that it's not like brand new art. And I think Sorcery has its kind of thing. It has its niche. The art's great. And you look at Pokemon, the art, you know, some of the art is great in Pokemon, and but it is sort of, it's not fantasy. And fantasy art is something that I really love. It is what got me into the game. And then you go through like the lore, like there is so much lore, it is ridiculous. I'll post a link in the description below for a couple of channels that I think are really good for kind of recapping lore and going through it. Obviously, the Flesh and Blood website has so much lore on it. We also have the lore book as well. I'm still hoping that we're going to get a paperback version of it, or, you know, a second lore book as such, because I just want to sit there and read it. Like, I feel like doing it digitally isn't the same. Like, I want to hold a hardback book. I don't want to pay 800 quid for one. I almost had one, but the guy decided he wanted to keep it, which absolutely makes sense. It is a special piece. Out of all the items in Flesh and Blood, I think the lore book is such a special item that I think it's kind of case of like once I got it, like it's not ever leaving my collection. And I probably said that about a few things, but like that specifically is just, it is special. It really, really is. The way they did that retailer, appreciation kit is something that I don't see other card games do. But the lore of the game itself is just absolutely amazing. It's so rich. Like I know before the last few sets, we did have a little bit of a gap. I think people left the company, but it seems to be on a roll now since Misfail, and there's just so much on there, and it is rich. I love Lord of the Rings. I'm a massive fan of Lord of the Rings, the Witcher series. That kind of that fantasy is like something that I really enjoy, and it kind of makes sense because there's parallels with that with Flesh and Blood. The way they sort of how much time they put into the lore is. You look at other card games, like especially like some of the recent card games, I just feel like the lore isn't like as invested into, and I think it's really undervalued in Flesh and Blood for people that are just coming in, like the casuals, I would say. I would recommend them definitely spending some time reading through some of the lore, because it is I find myself just sitting there and reading bits, whilst I'm sort of doing things. It is just, yeah, it's amazing. And, the community is a massive, big thing. The way that the community has helped this game thrive, obviously, the game came out I would say a rocky start in the world, because it was through the pandemic. And I've done a video, recently, and, there'll be a link in the description, or just check out, about would Flesh and Blood succeed if it came out in 2024? And there was various answers and various responses, and, kind of everyone had their sort of opinion. But I think the pandemic definitely meant the game struggled to get out there for a lot of people. And I think the people that a lot of people have left, obviously. I think with any card game, like, people leave, it happens. But I think the communities that we have now, I've talked about community champions in the past, and I think they're so vital to a game like Flesh and Blood. I hope that at some point they'll be rewarded. I don't know how LSS and Flesh and Blood can track this. I guess people can nominate people. I think that would be a great thing if Flesh and Blood did like a nomination thing for like, Heroes of Wraith or something. And they're people that are champions that are kind of like ensuring this game has a community, because I know for my, my local scene, if it wasn't, the store obviously has a part to play, but there's people that are so passionate about the game, that have, Connor and Peter, that have kept it alive but thriving throughout all things, and we've had Skirmish now, we've got a Pro Quest coming up later this year. We've obviously got pre-release for Rosetta, I think, next week. So, or I think it's this weekend or next week, but yeah, it's those are so important for this game, and they're very undervalued. And I've talked about stores in the past where, like, if they didn't have that, their community has shrunk. And I think this meta with Zen that we had, which is changing now because of the recent bans, I think that kind of proved a point how fragile the ecosystem is in the game sometimes, where if it isn't a meta that people like, they'll just dip out. And I get it. I do get it, but I think it's quite dangerous, because as a player coming in, if I see everyone dipping out, I might be discouraged from going. So I think, I get it, but I think people should still go to their armory if it's just the meta that's the issue. I still think that they should go. I think there's ways around, like, you can do blitz and stuff, and, try LL format. I think that's going to be something that's going to be huge. Clearly, the signification for these Marvels, the Rosetta and the Dustblade and stuff, and obviously Briar as well, is huge for LL. This, I know there's going to be an event later this year, which is it? I think it's Chicago. It's going to be LL format event, which is awesome. So I'll be interested to see kind of how that plays out. Another thing is obviously LSS themselves, James White, the whole team. You've got such a passionate team that is, so passionate about creating a game and creating a safe space for people. And I'm not talking about safe space in terms of like, you want you be thinking. I'm talking about just a place a community driven place where people can play cards in the flesh and blood, and to be able to travel and play cards is great. Like, that's doable with this game. But I think, the decisions they make, and especially over the last 12 months, have been really positive from LSS. They've obviously learned from their lessons, but the key thing with it is there is progression. You look at other companies like Wizards of the Coast, I don't see any clear progression with them. I think the way they've dealt their business over the last 5 years, the collabs they've done, the secret lairs, the lack of understanding of what their product is, what their consumer is, what the market is. Whereas this is something that LSS are very on, and I think, they either don't get enough credit or too much credit sometimes. I guess that's going to be up to, one man's opinion, but I feel like the fact that they're doing things that other companies are not doing to the scale that they're doing at, like, there might be some smaller card games out there that are addressing problems quite quickly and promptly, but again, they are a very small card game that might release like 2-3 sets a year and no other products. The events that they do aren't the size that Flesh and Blood is. Like, I remember being at Worlds when they announced the pool of like 1.5 million prize pool and everyone went crazy. And I didn't know back then just how exciting this year would be. This has been the best year for Flesh and Blood since the year I got in, when, we had Crucible of War come out, Monarch, and then obviously Tales of Aria into 2021. I didn't join 2019. I joined when Crucible of War came out. So it was like most of the year way through 2020. But this year has been absolutely exciting. I don't think James White's doing as many interviews in terms of like meet and greets and stuff, but he's clearly at the helm, and I think delegation has been done, which is great. But what we're seeing from this is a proactive company, and this is a progressive, proactive, very modern company that is quite easily adaptable in terms of the way they, present things, the way they change things. Obviously, they spoke about the bannings they wanted to do, and they were like, look, we want to do it before the Rosetta format. We want to make sure that, it's done before Worlds. It makes sense. I think looking back at it now, as a Katsu player, sure, but now we've got Ira. They've said there's going to be more news for Katsu going forward, like more support. But they made a decision that was very bold, and a lot of companies are really afraid to make bold decisions. They make a lot of bad decisions, but I wouldn't necessarily say they were bold. This one was bold and it was positive. I think now it's sat and stewed. I think a lot of people are quite happy with, what's happened, the way that it's kind of panned out. It makes sense. Like, they've looked at the game going forward in the future and gone, right, this is a potential hiccup that we could have. We don't want to have another format like Zen where people are just not showing up for armories. They're discouraged to play because they don't feel like they have a chance unless they're running certain, a couple of heroes, which makes sense. But they did something about it. They said they were going to do something about it, and they are extremely progressive as a company. The fact that they still reply to you on social medias, James White still goes through X and Twitter and stuff and likes stuff. The competitions they did with Collector Weeks was fantastic. I just don't see this community driven kind of approach to things done by any other company. As I said to the Scaler as well, like, look, I'm involved in a lot of card games, like, all the time. Like, if you're watching this and you've watched more than one of my videos, you are fully aware that I am involved in many card games, and I will call LSS out and Flesh and Blood out if I feel like what they're doing doesn't meet the criteria to what the game is and what the community is. And their story. If I don't feel like it's to their story, I will say, and I've done it plenty of times, and this is probably the reason why I've, never partnered with LSS so far, is because I am very blunt and I am very honest, but I have to give props to Flesh and Blood and LSS because what they've done this year really has been remarkable. The turnaround they've done for people like collectors, where we had, Fab 1.0 was very collector and investor driven, 2.0 was very player driven, and now I think Fab 3.0 is just a really good harmonious mix here. Like, obviously there's going to be times where collectors and players aren't happy all the time, but I think as a whole, we are very much, in symphony right now. Like, things are going great. Like, I am really happy with where the game is. I am just excited. Like, every time there's an announcement, every time there's an event now, I'm like, oh, what are they going to show? Like, I am just excited. It's a constant state of excitement for this game. And the passion they have, the passion the collectors and the players have, it simply cannot be faked. And I think when you've got games like Lorcana, Star Wars, One Piece that have all come out over these last few years that have absolutely smashed it with these huge IPs, I think more credit needs to be given to Flesh and Blood and LSS for the fact that it's a niche game within a niche market, a brand new IP, a brand new company. Like, people discredit Flesh and Blood, sometimes, and they're like, oh, yeah, I heard it all the time before. It's like, the game's not going to come out in 2021. The game's not going to come out in 2022, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of those people, and pretty much all of them, never really gave the game a chance. I think that they never sat down, they never looked at the cards, they never played the cards. Like, the game, I've spoken to a lot of players that have got out the game, that play other card games with me, and they all say the same thing. Mechanically, the way that Flesh and Blood plays is the best card game ever made. But there are other issues there that are involved that have actually been, the burden's been lessened over the last few years. Like, the entry cost to the game is a lot lower than it was before. Now Art of War is banned. Like, that's almost a play set of cards, £100 that you don't need in your deck. There's been lots of reprints, there's a lot of cards that are coming out for class specific now, so we're moving a little bit away from generics in terms of equipment. They're always going to be used at the end of the day because they're generics. But I think moving forward, like, we've got this theme and it makes sense. So, this really is kind of a bit of a love letter to Flesh and Blood. We did the It's Time to Not Be Quiet About Flesh and Blood video previously, where we showed off some of the collection. It was a series of videos that a lot of people around the world did. They collaborated. There was no, like, inside thing about it. It simply was just sharing our love of this amazing game, this Flesh and Blood. We've obviously got, I think Leon's coming up next. Then we have, obviously, Worlds in Osaka later this year, which I won't be at, unfortunately. I've got a family holiday in Singapore, Malaysia, so I'll be missing that one out. But I for sure will be hopefully at many events next year. We're talking about just Flesh and Blood events, the only one I did this year was Liverpool Calling. I did, obviously, UK Games Expo, Flesh and Blood was there, and that was fantastic. But I think a lot of the events for Flesh and Blood are up north, so it's a little bit of travel. It's like a 7-hour travel for me. So it's a lot to take out for that. So we'll see what happens going forward. But there are some exciting things on the channel. We've got some really good collabs going on with some UK companies, some companies in Japan. So there's a lot more to come out over the next 3 to 6 months. Another update is there appears to be somebody that is reporting my content and reporting me. Look, from what I've heard, I can't really say too much because it was said in private and it was quite cryptic, but from what I gauge, someone's trying to get rid of the competition. And I know who that person is. So, look, at the end of the day, I'm just making content. I buy and sell cards. Like, this is a passion project, but also my full-time job now. So we've had this transition. Obviously, you've seen this over the last 12 months if you've been watching my videos. This transition we've had from doing it as a hobby to a full-time gig. It isn't easy sometimes. It isn't. Like, I just had my Cardmarket account suspended because I sell too many things. So now they're looking into my account because I sell too much, which is just, the more I sell, the more fees they make. So I don't know. I've had content taken down. People reported it. Thankfully, it's all been put back up because they realised there was nothing in the report. But people are reporting my content as well. So, or somebody is anyway. But we'll see what happens. But as always, please comment, like, and subscribe. Hit that link in the description below for the Discord. And if you want to become a member and see content early, please hit the join button. You get exclusive content early. You also get a 5% discount across the store, which includes pre-orders for Rosetta. And as always, have a great day.